We are continuing with our course, that is BPSC 145, and we are learning about the democracy and development in the Northeast India. So, in this entire course, in this entire paper, we are learning about the northeastern part of our country, which is a very important part because it shares border with many other countries also. So, it is having many international borders. So, to know about this area, the politics there, the culture, the region, the geography is very important to understand India to understand India better. So this course is for that, and we are learning about northeastern part of India because since a very long time, this northeastern part of our country is not popular among the other parts of the country because there were many small and less studies that have been done, and nowadays it is a very important part. The focus shifted there because it shares border with many countries. It is strategically a very important part of our country, and that is why we are studying about this paper. So we have completed till unit 4, and today we are going to continue with special provisions for the Northeast. So in this unit 5, we will be learning about what are the special provisions that were provided to the northeastern part of our country, why they are provided also we will be addressing in this unit. So, to introduce the unit, we should know that India consists of several regions which have different levels of development. So, the development in India is not uniform, and different regions have different levels of development, and they consist also different diverse groups who speak different languages, have different cultures, customs, etc. So there is no uniformity in this aspect in India because we have so many different cultures, aspects, traditions, languages, religions, all together residing in a country, and together they form India. So northeastern part of our country consists of 8 states that we are discussing every day. That it is very important to know what are the 8 states that constitute this entire northeastern region. So, starting from Assam, the area also consists of Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, Meghalaya, and Sikkim. And it is one of the regions in India. So, these states need special provisions for the protection of their cultural identities. Here in this northeastern part of our country, there are 8 different states with n number of different cultures, n number of tribal groups, n number of ethnic and traditional differences, languages, religions. There are so many diversity that it needs special provisions for the protection of their cultural identities, that is, their traditional, social, and political institution and natural and economic resources. So it is very important to give special attention to this area because there are so many cultural identities living together at one place in one region, and it is very important to address their issue and demands. Such provisions ensure the protection of cultural identities, customs, as I already discussed, about the economic and political interest of the inhabitants of these areas. So, whoever are living in these areas, their identity should be protected, their political interests should be protected, their customs, their economy, all these things should be protected. The British sought to make administrative changes after occupying Assam in the 19th century by introducing the Regulations and Acts, Inner Line Regulation of 1873, and the Scheduled District Act 1874, the Government of India Acts of 1919 and 1935. So, through these acts, the British tried to make administrative changes in Assam because initially they occupied Assam. These were reflected in the special provisions enacted for Northeast India after independence. So, all these things also paved way for the special provisions that is provided to the northeastern part after independence. Now, we should know about what is excluded and partially excluded areas to know further and in deep that what are these special provisions all about. Origin of the special provisions for Northeast India can be linked to the British policy of identifying some areas of Assam. So there are some areas of Assam that required special attention, and we can see that it comes from the British era only. And later on, the areas that they identified, the Britishers identified in Assam, it later became hill districts of Assam. So it is the area which is hilly geographically that are required to give special provisions. And these four states, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, and Arunachal Pradesh, these were the four states there. Manipur and Tripura were princely states back then. And Sikkim, till that time, was an independent country in the post independence period. So, Assam during the colonial period had broadly two types of areas, that is, hill and plains. Finding the cost of administration not being compensated by the revenue returns, the British found it more expedient not to spend on running the administration of this region. So, because they were not getting anything back while keeping an administrative system there, so they did not wanted to spend money on that area. Rather, the hills were left to be governed by their traditional rule, which did not cost them anything. So, what they have tried, they tried that they thought that it is very expensive to keep administration in hills. So, it's better to let them govern themselves according to the traditional value, because that will not cost them anything. So, besides, the people in this area had been averse to the notion of an outsider ruling over them. Also, the people who are inhabitants of the hilly areas in Assam back then, they were very averse that there should not be any outsider who will be ruling them. An intrusion or its apprehension into their affairs was met with opposition and hostility. So people didn't wanted someone to intrude in their area, intrude in their life, and that is why they oppose their coming. The hill regions of Assam were ruled by British indirectly. So Britishers were there, but they were ruling the hilly areas indirectly. The Britishers did not interfere with their traditional system of authority. So, because as we discussed that they were finding very expensive to keep an administrative system over there because of the climate, because of the geographical locations, so they started giving free hand to the local people to rule and govern themselves, and they decided not to interfere in their traditional system of authority. So the issues that are related to land, inheritance, forest, dispute resolutions, all these things were dealt with according to the customary laws of that particular people who are residing in that hilly area. And it is done through the arbitration of clan and tribal chiefs. So Britishers didn't interfere in their these kinds of aspects, and it was customary laws that was guiding the process. They were declared as backward areas according to the Government of India Act 1990. So the areas which Britishers didn't touch and they didn't want to go and set up an administration, on the other name of that area is hilly areas, and at that place it was left to the population living there to govern themselves. Those areas were declared as backward areas according to the Government of India Act that came in 1990. Later on, the Government of India Act 1935 turned these areas into excluded and partially excluded areas. So they created these two categories from the erstwhile backward areas. There was some difference between excluded and partially excluded areas that we will be going to learn in this session in further slides. The former were not represented in the legislature of Assam, though they were located in the province of Assam. So the areas which were excluded in nature, they were not represented in the legislature of Assam. Please underline this, please note this down, because it is very important to know what does these excluded areas in Assam and non-excluded areas or partially excluded areas mean. The excluded areas were administered by the governor in council as his reserved jurisdiction. So this is very important point, you should note it down. On the other hand, the partially excluded areas, there was some authority of the provisional legislature. Jurisdiction of the courts of British India was limited in such areas. The British followed the policy of minimum interference, as we discussed, in these excluded and partially excluded areas because of the reasons we have already discussed in our previous slide, that they didn't want to expend money on administration over the hilly areas, and they left them on their traditional values. Indeed, there were such three areas in Assam, apart from the two excluded and partially excluded areas. And the third excluded area in which the Britishers did not interference was the tribal area of Assam. So there is a particularly third area which Britishers didn't want to interfere in. That is the tribal area of Assam. The British divided people of Northeast India belonging to two exclusive areas, plains or hills. The hills were included excluded areas. Now, let's talk about Crown Colony. What is this? What do we mean by Crown Colony? So, the British did not interfere in the affairs of the excluded and partially excluded areas, as we have already discussed. But they had their political preference about these areas to be followed after the departure of the British from India. So, that is how they wanted the things to be done. The British argued that after the withdrawal of the British from India, tribes in the excluded and partially excluded areas needed protection. So they were in the view that after they withdraw from India and after they left India, the areas that are there and the tribal people, the tribal population that resides in the excluded and partially excluded areas, they need protection. The British mooted a plan to bring all the areas of the Northeast along with the tribal areas of Burma under a crown colony. So, Burma here is the other name, erstwhile name of Myanmar, which is now in a different country. The governor of Assam, R.N. Reid, suggested that tribes of Assam Hills and Burma should be united to form something called Crown Colony. So these, what is this Crown Colony? According to Britishers, according to governor of Assam, specifically R.N. Reid, he suggested that the tribal areas of Assam, erstwhile Assam, and Burma should be named as Crown Colony. The British wanted to keep the areas covering Crown Colony under their control after departing from India. So they didn't want to left the parts northeastern tribals to the population Indian population, but they wanted to have they wanted to have control over the tribal areas of the northeast and Burma. The plan to create a crown colony was a secret plan and was known as the Kuland Plan, named after Reginald Coupland. So, this was a secret plan that they were plotting. So, the Indian National Congress rejected this suggestion because that is against the sovereignty of a area, of a country. The idea of a crown colony was also rejected by the tribes of Assam and Andrew Clow, the successor of Reid as governor of Assam. So, whoever comes after Reid, the governor of Assam, it was Andrew Clow, who himself, being a Britisher, didn't wanted this to happen, and he rejected the idea of crown colony. Also, along with the tribes of Assam who lives there, they also didn't wanted to convert themselves and be controlled by a crown colony structure. However, the proposal to protect the tribes of excluded and partially excluded areas was taken up in the Constituent Assembly debates. So, because India is now going to get independence and there is a Constituent Assembly that is set up to develop a constitution of India. So, these issues regarding the northeastern part, where there was a requirement of protecting the tribes living in this excluded and partially excluded areas, they started debating about this topic in the Constituent Assembly. And the nomenclature of excluded and partially excluded again was replaced by tribal areas. So initially it was backward areas, then it became excluded and partially excluded, and now in Constituent Assembly it was known as tribal areas. So consequently, the Constituent Assembly created sixth schedule in the Indian Constitution, providing special provisions about the tribal areas of Assam, from which four states emerged later. So here we are talking about Assam, which comprised of another four states that later became independent from Assam, and they are now a separate state. So it is very important to know that till this time we are talking about Assam, which is a very large area which comprises of four different states in it. And also, the Constituent Assembly created a special schedule for protecting the rights of the tribals in the northeastern part of our country, and that schedule was known as the sixth schedule. Please note it down. This is very, very important, and it will provide a clear picture to know the northeastern part more properly. Now, let's talk about the special provisions that are being provided to this part of area. Starting with the sixth schedule. We recently, in our previous slide, we talked about sixth schedule, which was created by the Constituent Assembly to protect the rights of the tribal areas and tribal people. The Constituent Assembly of India realized the need to create a distinct administrative device for the protection of the rights and identities of the tribal people of Assam. So it is the Constituent Assembly of India which realized that it is a very important topic to create a distinct administrative device so that they can protect the rights and identities of the tribal people of Assam. Till now, the Assam consists of four more states. So don't forget this point, because later on, with gradually after independence, these four states became separate. It helps in emerging of four states later on. The Constituent Assembly created such a device in the sixth schedule of the Constitution, and the sixth schedule is dealt with Article 244(2) of the Indian Constitution. It makes special arrangements for the administration of tribal areas in the states of Assam, Meghalaya, Mizoram, and Tripura. So, it makes special arrangements of the administration for these tribal areas. So there are 10 such areas. Each of these states has three such areas. So they identified 10 such areas which required administration arrangements, and each state has three such areas. So now we will be knowing about these areas where the sixth schedule provisions have been provided. In Assam, the areas are the North Kachar Hill District, Dimal Haulang. Second is the Karbi Anglong districts, the Bodoland Territorial Area District. All these three areas is in Assam. So these were identified by the sixth schedule to be provided with special administrative arrangements for the upliftment of the tribal people and their protection of their rights. In Meghalaya, the areas are the Khasi Hill districts, Jaintia Hills, and Garo Hills district. So these are the three areas which were identified. In Mizoram, the areas are the Chakma district, Mara district, and Lai district. In Tripura, it has only one district, that is the Tripura Tribal Areas district. So these were the areas that have been identified by the Constituent Assembly to be provided with special arrangements of administration. So, one of the most important provisions of the sixth schedule is that the tribal areas are to be administered as autonomous districts and autonomous regions. This is very important, that the areas which are provided, which are, mentioned in the sixth schedule, it is being administered as autonomous districts and autonomous regions. The governor of the state is empowered to determine areas to be identified as administrative units of the autonomous district and autonomous regions. So, what the power that governor is having? The governor has the power to create new autonomous districts and regions. Also, he or she can alter the territorial jurisdiction or the name of any autonomous district or autonomous regions. The sixth schedule confers certain executive, legislative, and judicial powers also. So it provides them autonomy to make laws. So what are the areas where they can make laws? It is the land, managing their forest, other than the reserve forest, appointment of traditional chiefs and headmen, inheritance of property, marriage, social customs, taxations, etc. So these were the areas where they can make special provisions. Apart from Northeast India, there are other regions in India that have a tribal population in different numbers. So not only the northeastern part of India is having tribal population, but other parts of India also have tribal population. While areas with a substantial population in Northeast India are known as tribal areas, those inhabited by tribals in other areas are known as scheduled areas. This is very, very important to note down that tribals live in entire country. They are not concentrated only in the northeastern part, but the tribals, the areas which comes under the tribal population, they were known as tribal areas in the northeastern India. But in the other part of our country, the tribal population or the areas is known as scheduled area. So, like the tribes in the tribal areas protected by the sixth schedule, those in the scheduled areas are protected under the fifth schedule. So, northeastern tribals are protected under six schedules. Scheduled areas, that means tribals living in entire India other than northeastern part, they have been protected under the fifth schedule. Parliament has powers to change these by ordinary legislation without amending the constitution. Also, there are provisions under the fifth schedule envisage the creation of Tribes Advisory Council. So, Tribe Advisory Council can be created, and it was envisaged through the fifth schedule. The sixth schedule provides for autonomous district councils or regional council as institutional mechanism for the administration of their respective areas. So, fifth schedule talks about Tribes Advisory Council. Sixth schedule talks about autonomous district council, which is also known as regional councils. This is the difference. The Tribal Advisory Council that came under fifth schedule are the creation of state legislature. Here we are talking about the difference between the fifth and the sixth schedule. And in fifth schedule, the tribal advisory council that we have discussed in our previous slide, that have been the creation of state legislature, whereas district councils or regional council in the sixth schedule are product of the constitution. This is a major difference between the sixth and the fifth schedule. It is the state legislature's action that give power to tribal advisory council in the fifth schedule, whereas it is the constitution which give powers to the autonomous district councils or regional councils, which are given power through six schedules. It draw all the powers and functions from the constitution itself. So whatever powers is there with the district councils that is mentioned in sixth schedule, they have all the powers and functions. They draw their powers and functions from the constitution itself. Just a second. Now it is very important to know which areas come under the scheduled area. We know about tribal areas that consist of 8 states of northeastern part of our country. Now we will be knowing about the scheduled areas, that is other than northeastern part, which areas of our country is mentioned as scheduled area. So the areas which are located in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Himachal Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Maharashtra, Odisha, and Rajasthan. So all these areas, all these states have scheduled areas where the tribal population used to live. So these are the areas which comes under scheduled area. And 8 states that comes under Northeast, they are known as tribal areas. Now let's talk about inner line permit. The provisions of inner line regulations prohibits the travel of outsiders beyond a point known as inner line. So it is very important to understand that there are some areas where tribals don't want any outsider to intrude. They don't want any interference in their lives. They didn't want modernity. They didn't want to get involved in the modern setup. And that is why they are given privacy by the constitution of our country, because Otherwise, the tribals feel that their tradition, their cultures are at risk. So they created inner line permit, and it's a regulation which provides travel of outsiders beyond a point known as inner line. So suppose a tribal group is living in a forest area, and there are many visitors, there are many travelers who want to explore that particular area. They are not permitted to go after a certain line, and that is called inner line permit. So after that certain area or certain boundary, nobody can go inside, because that will be curtailing the rights of the tribal people who didn't wanted to entertain any outsider, because that is against their cultural and ethical values. It is into certain areas without the permission of the state government covering the jurisdiction of such areas. So it is done by the government and state governments, central government and state governments, who decides that there should not be any intruders, any outsiders who can go beyond a certain point. So its purpose, what is the purpose? Its purpose is to protect the land, natural resources, and identity of these areas from exploiting the non-residents of these areas. So if you are allowed in going somewhere, so you will be exploiting land. There is also possibility that someone can exploit the natural resources. The identities will be hampering. So that is why they are not allowed, because they are non-resident of that particular area. This system of inner line was drawn up under the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation 1873. During the colonial period, the regulation preserved the British control there and hindered the integration of the people of the hills and the plains. So, the inner line regulation exists in four states, that is Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Nagaland, Manipur, and the North Kachar district of Assam. So these are the four states where inner line regulations exist, and beyond a point, nobody can go there. In Manipur, it was introduced in the year 2019. The demand for its extension is made in other states such as Meghalaya, and outside Northeast, inner line permission is needed to travel into Lakshadweep. Demand for its introduction is also made in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. It is also a popular, concept that the oldest tribals live in Andaman and Nicobar Island. So the Lakshadweep area, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands area, they consist of many tribal population who live in that area. And also, apart from the northeastern part that is mentioned here, these two areas, that is Lakshadweep and Andaman and Nicobar area, also require a permission from the government, so that somebody can go there or not. So it is also non-permissible area, and inner line permission is required in Lakshadweep and Andaman and Nicobar Islands, along with the northeastern states that is mentioned here. Now, let's talk about Articles 371A to 371C and Articles 371F to 371H. What are these articles? What it consists of? So, all tribal areas were not covered under the provisions of the sixth schedule. So, whatever we have discussed in our previous slides, that what are the areas which comes under sixth schedule. Here we are talking that there are not all areas that covered under sixth schedule. Such areas were covered later on by adding article to already existing Article 371. That is why you can see A, B, C, D, E, F, because 371 already existed, but because places were added later on, so they were 371A, then another thing came, then it became 371B. So this is how the name of the article is as such. So Article 371A is about Nagaland, 371B is about Assam, Article 371C is about Manipur, 371F is about Sikkim, G is about Mizoram, and H is about Arunachal Pradesh. So, according to Article 371A, no act passed by the parliament will be applicable to Nagaland without the approval of the Nagaland Legislative Assembly. This is very important to understand that the Article 371A talks about Nagaland. It addresses Nagaland, and it is said that no act that is passed by the parliament of our country, it will be applicant to Nagaland without the permission and approval of Nagaland Legislative Assembly. So whatever acts are getting passed in the Indian Parliament, they have been approved by the Nagaland Legislative Assembly. Then only it is activated in that area. It also gives special responsibility to the governor regarding law and order in the state. So, Article 371B has special provisions about the protection of rights of tribes in hill areas of Assam. According to it, the President may provide for the constitution and function of a committee of the Legislative Assembly of Assam, which will consist of the members elected from the tribal areas of Assam. According to Article 371C, the President may appoint a committee of Legislative Assembly consisting of the members elected from the tribal areas of Manipur. Also, the governor must annually submit a report to the president regarding the administration of hill areas as well. So there is also accountability because governor is required to submit a report to the president about whatever the administration needs are there, problems are there, how the things are being conducted. All these things were, made into a report, and the governor is responsible to submit this to the president. Article 371F is about Sikkim. It was inserted in the constitution after Sikkim became a state of Indian Union in 1975. Before that, Sikkim was an independent country. After 1975, it joined India as a state, and it was inserted in the constitution in the year 1975 only. It seeks to provide seats in the state assembly to different sections of society in order to protect their interest. So it suggested that the Legislative Assembly of Sikkim will not have less than 30 seats. So this is also a provision that is mentioned in this Article 371F. 371G suggests that the Mizoram no act of parliament will be applicable in respect of certain issues. It is unless the Legislative Assembly passes a resolution in support of its application. So, what are the issues on which no act of parliament can be applicable without the support of Legislative Assembly? That we need to know about Mizoram, and these issues are religious or social practices of Mizos, Mizo customary laws and procedures, administration of civil and criminal justice that involves decision according to the Mizo customary law. Next is ownership and transfer of land. So these are the areas where the parliament, if passes an act, cannot be applicable in Mizoram without the support of Legislative Assembly there. If Legislative Assembly of Mizoram accept that, then only the issues and the acts passed on the particular issues mentioned here, the four issues, they can be applicable. So Article 371H is about, it's about a special responsibility assigned to the governor with respect to law and order in Arunachal Pradesh area. It also suggests that the state will not have less than 30 seats in the Legislative Assembly. Now let's talk about states in Northeast India as a special category states. So this is also very important that there are some states in Northeast which is considered as special category states. All 8 states of Northeast India also enjoy the status of special category states. So the Fifth Finance Commission created the special category of states in 1969 with the purpose of providing central assistance and tax credits to them. So that is why they are special category states. For the identification of a state as a special category state, a state should have following characteristics. So what are the characteristics that make a state a special category state? So first is hilly and difficult terrain. So geographically, the area should be very bad in the sense very non-accessible, very harsh. So hilly and difficult terrain is one thing where people find it very difficult to move to, mobility is very less because of the geographical location there. So this is one characteristics which make a state a special category state. Secondly, it is the low population density or sizable area of tribal population. If a area is having very low population density or sizable area of tribal population, they also become a state which comes under the special category. Thirdly, it is the strategic location along borders with neighboring countries. As I already discussed in our previous classes, that how the northeastern states are important because they share border with other countries. And the fourth point, which makes a state special category, is non-viable nature of finances. So these four issues, if some these four characteristics, if some country, some state is having, they became a special category state, and these all special category states belong to the northeastern region. The states in Northeast India that became special category states are as follows. So, what are these states which have the characteristics mentioned in the previous slides? So, the states are Assam and Nagaland, which became special category states in the year 1969. Next comes the Meghalaya, Manipur, and Tripura, which became a special category state in the year 1972. Then comes Sikkim in 1975 and Mizoram and Arunachal Pradesh in 1987. So, in these particular years, these states became a special category states. Outside of Northeast India, there is also special category states, including Himachal Pradesh, which became special category state in the year 1971. Another is Uttarakhand in 2001, and Jammu Kashmir state, which was converted on 5th of August 2019 from a state into two union territories, that is Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh. They became separate union territories. They were also included in the special category state in 1969. Several other states in India are also demanding the status of special category states. With this, we end Unit 5. Now we will be moving forward to Unit 6. Unit 6 is about regional and district councils. So, in previous chapter, we discussed about the special provisions provided to the northeastern part. Now, we will be talking about the regional and district councils in this part of our country. So, let's start with the concepts, that is regional and district council. What is the concept behind that? So, we will be learning about this in our this slide. In the sixth schedule of the Constitution provides for the creation of a district and regional councils in Northeast India. So this sixth schedule of the Constitution, which we have discussed, it provides for the creation of district and regional councils in Northeast India, and these constitutional devices is to protect the economic interest and the cultural identity and tribal communities of this part. Autonomous district councils are constitutional devices that cover an entire tribal district, and it may consist of more than one tribe. So, these autonomous district councils is applicable in the entire tribal district, whether it is inhabited by one tribe or more tribes. Also, the autonomous regional council covers a specific tribe within a region of such a district, and it can be elevated to an autonomous district council. Also, Constitutional Bill 2019 provided for the village and municipal council and district and regional council in the sixth schedule areas. Also, it suggested that the district council will make rules regarding the powers of the village and village council also. So, the tribal areas in Northeast India having such devices are known as scheduled areas. Prior to the inclusion of the sixth schedule in the constitution, such areas were identified as excluded and partially excluded areas, backward areas. The Bordoloi Committee recommended that provisions be made in India's constitution for creating constitutional devices to give autonomy to the tribal areas in Northeast India. Such autonomy would enable the tribal people in the region to preserve their identity and natural resources. So, why the areas in the Northeast required special provisions, autonomy? Because they need to protect their tribal identity, their natural resources. and the population, the tribal population has a very important and mismatched connection with the nature, the natural resources, and they are totally dependent on these natural resources. And it is very important for the government, the administration, to take care that their inhabitant areas, their habitats are not being compromised, because they are also a part of our country, they are also citizens of this country. The sixth schedule, which provides for the creation of the district and regional councils, resulted from the Bordoloi Committee's recommendation. The power to identify a district or region to introduce autonomous district council or autonomous regional council rests with the governor. So it is the power of the governor that who can decide, who can identify a district or region so that that area can become autonomous district council or autonomous regional council. The governor also has power to alter the territorial jurisdiction of this autonomous district council or autonomous regional council. So, governor is very important here, plays a very important role, because the areas are special provisions areas. They required special attention, they required special mentions, they required attention by the government to preserve their identity, their culture, their ethnicity. So it is a very important role that governor play here, because he or she takes care of the welfare of that particular area. Now let's talk about which states and which areas comes under the Autonomous District Council. In short, we can see ADCs. So what are the states with ADCs? According to the sixth schedule, four states of Northeast India, that is Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram, have in all 10 autonomous district councils. So, what are these autonomous district councils in these four states? So, their state wise names are given below. Assam. Let's start with Assam. Assam's area of North Kachar Hill District, Dima Hasao, Karbi Anglong District, the Bodoland Territorial Area District are the places which comes under an autonomous district council. In Meghalaya, in the year 1952, elections to the district councils were held in United Khasi Jaintia Hill districts, Garo Hill districts, Mikir Hills. The Hills district became constituent of Meghalaya state. So, what are the areas which comes under autonomous district councils? It is the Khasi Hill districts, the Jaintia Hills district, and Garo Hill districts. In Tripura, it is the Tripura Tribal Areas district. If we talk about Mizoram, it is the Chakma district, the Chakma Autonomous District Council, the Mara district, that is Mara Autonomous District Council, and the Lai district, that is Lai Autonomous District Councils. So these were the areas which comes under the states, four states mentioned in our previous slide, and these are the particular areas, district councils, which is being administered by the Autonomous District Council administration. Now let's talk about the demands for council or extension of the sixth schedule provisions. So there is also demand to extend the sixth schedule provisions. So after the passage of the Manipur Hill Area District Council Act in 1971, the Tripura Tribal Areas Autonomous District Council Act 1979, and the district councils were created in Manipur and Tripura. So it is, in the year 1971, in Manipur, where the district council act is being passed, whereas in Tripura it is Tripura Tribal Areas Autonomous District Council Act was passed in 1979, but the provisions of the sixth schedule were not extended to these states. So it is very important to know. The sixth schedule did not include all regional introduction of district and regional council. So we can see what are the areas that have been provided under this regional and district councils. Not all of these areas are that. So it is very important to understand. In fact, demand for the extension of provisions arose in the states of Manipur in 1978 and Tripura from 1981. So there is a demand of extension because they have not given the entire, areas as district they didn't include. So that is why there is demand to extend its provision. So in Manipur, the demand came from 1978, and since 1980s, Tripura's demand decreased. In response to the demands, the Tripura Autonomous Council District Council was brought under 6th schedule on 1st April 1987. Demands for autonomous councils are often raised in those areas of the Northeast where they do not exist. Some example of such demands are the demand by the Kuki Regional Council in Kuki areas of Karbi Anglong district of Assam, and also the demand for regional council for Mars from the North Kachar Autonomous District Council in Assam. The existence of ADCs in Northeast India has also inspired the autonomy movement in some other parts of India. In response to such demands, council-based the ADCs model were created for Indian Nepalis, also known as Gorkha in West Bengal. Tribals in southern Bihar, which became Jharkhand in state in 2000, and Tibetan Indians in the Ladakh region, which became a union territory in 2019. So the sixth schedule defines powers of both the autonomous district councils and the autonomous regional councils. The governor is the person who makes sure that the rules about the ADC and ARC. So ADC stands for Autonomous District Council, ARC stands for Autonomous Regional Council. So it is the government making sure that the rules on the ADCs and ARCs in the consultation with the tribal council or representatives of the tribal organization within the concerned ACD and ARC. So, ADCs and ARCs are endowed with certain legislative, executive, judicial, and financial powers. Each autonomous district has a regional council. The autonomous district council will have jurisdiction only over such matter on which the autonomous regional council has delegated power to the ADC. Also, the ADC will have such powers in addition to the powers conferred by the schedule. However, administrative power and functions of these district councils and regional councils differ from state to state. So each state has a different administrative power and functions that is mentioned to the district council and regional council. The sixth schedule lays down the different administrative provisions for each state's district council or regional councils. So what are the paras? So para 12, 12A, 12AA and 12B for the state of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram. The power and functions of district councils and regional councils as given in the sixth schedule can be summarized as: first is the legislative power, that is, the ADCs and ARCs have powers to legislate on certain issues. However, such laws cannot have validity unless they have the assent of the governor. Among the subjects that comes under, the rule of ADCs and ARCs are: first is allotment, occupation, or use of land, other than a reserve forest I'm talking about, and the schedule talks about for the purpose of agriculture. They will allot occupied and use of land can be done for the purpose of agriculture or grazing, for residential and other non-agricultural purposes, for residential or other purposes. Secondly is management of forest, which is not reserved, use of canal or watercourse for the purpose of agriculture, regulation of jhum. Jhum here is jhum cultivation that we have discussed in our previous sessions, that it is a popular cultivation in the hilly areas. They planted thing and they cut the product and burn it and move on to different place. So this regulation of jhum or another form of shifting. Next comes the establishment of village or town committees or councils and their powers. Appointment of succession headmen goes under the rule that comes under ADCs and ARCs. Also, social custody. As we discussed, along property, divorce, all these things are the subjects on which the autonomous district council and autonomous regional council can make laws on and make rules on. So these are the issues, these are the areas where they have been given power to make rules, make regulations. Now, let's talk about executive powers. The sixth schedule also endowed the district council and regional council with extensive executive powers. So, to run the councils properly, to make proper administrative arrangements, to make that area more active, and to see what are the needs and regulations required there. So the sixth schedule powers empowers the district councils and the regional council with extensive executive powers. So the district councils and regional councils are given power to establish, construct, or manage primary schools, dispensaries, markets, ferries, cattle ponds, fisheries, roads, road transport, and waterways in the district. So here, why we are talking about ferries and fisheries and waterways, because northeastern part of our country are having huge rivers. Many rivers are there, and also the Brahmaputra is one of the mightiest river. It is being said. It is also passes through the northeastern part of our country. So these are the ways through which marketing can be done. Ferries are required for people from go to one side, one bank of the river to the other, and then fishery is also a very good source, because of the area where is there are so many rivers. Fishery and is very important aspect. So the district council and regional council have power to establish, construct, and manage all these areas, all these activities in their particular district. With the approval of the governor, councils are also authorized to prescribe the language, manner of instruction in the primary school. This is very important because councils can authorize, but with the approval of the governor only, they can authorize which language, how the manner of instruction should be there in primary schools. The district council may be entrusted with other works such as agriculture, animal husbandry, community projects, college societies, social welfare, village planning, or any other matter which falls under the executive power of the state. So, these are the areas where district councils work. Now, let's talk about the judicial powers. What are the judicial powers that with the ADCs and the ARCs? Judicial powers of the regional council relate to the constitution of the village. District councils go for a trial of suits and cases where all parties to the dispute belong to the scheduled tribes within the district. So, district courts can provide trial suits and cases where the parties of the dispute should belong to the scheduled tribes within the district. Also, the power of court of appeal can be exercised only by the courts established by the district council. So, a district council or regional council may make rules relating to village councils and courts and their powers. So, they have this kinds of power, and moreover, no other court except the High Court and Supreme Court have jurisdiction over such suits. So, this is also a very important point to note down, that these are the judicial powers that is being provided to the autonomous district councils and autonomous regional councils, where only the High Court and the Supreme Court can make can take decisions, and it is under their jurisdiction that these issues will be solved. However, the district councils and the regional councils do not have powers to decide cases involving death or imprisonment for 5 years or more. So there is also a restriction in their powers, where they can't decide the case which involves death, imprisonment for 5 years or more. So this is also a limitation to their power. Now let's talk about the financial powers. So the district councils and the regional councils have financial powers so that they can prepare a budget for the related council. So what are the areas on which they can make a budget? It is to assess the imposed taxes on land and buildings, professions, trades, employment, animal, vehicle, taxes on entry of goods into the market for sale, also the toll on passengers and goods carried in ferries, and the maintenance of schools. So, along with that, there is also dispensaries or roads within their respective jurisdiction where they can decide the financial, they can utilize their financial power and decide for a budget. The district councils have power to grant licenses or releases for the extraction of minerals within their jurisdiction. So, there is also power that lies with the district council about granting the licenses or leases. So, this is very important because, as I already told you, the area in the northeastern part of our country is geographically a very important part, also because it has many sources of natural resources. So here the power to allow to grant license or give lease for the extraction of those minerals that is there that could be found lies with the district councils, who can decide who can have license and power to extract minerals from that area from that particular district. The councils are also entitled to royalties on the extraction of minerals each year. So whatever the minerals have been extracted, these council are entitled to royalties. District council and regional council are constituted by elected and nominated members. So this is very important that what is the composition of this district councils and regional councils. So these council are constituted of elected and nominated members. The elected members are elected through the universal adult franchise, and the governor nominates the nominated members. So please note it down that how the election in these district councils has been done. The elected members are elected through the universal adult franchise, first point, and then it is the governor who nominates the nominated member. The number of members of each district council and regional council will not be more than 30. So the limit of members is 30, and no one can join if the entire seats are being full. And of these, 26 members are elected, 4 are nominated. Please write it down, please note it down that the members of autonomous district councils and regional council consist of 30 members, among which 26 are elected and 4 are nominated. 26 are elected on the basis of universal adult franchisee, and 4 are nominated by the governor. So the Bodoland Territorial Council is an exception. So there is also an exception, and the exception lies with the Bodoland Territorial Council, where it can have 46 members. So the number of members are more in Bodoland Territorial Council, and in these 46 members, 40 are elected, 6 are nominated by the government. So in other district councils and regional councils, you can find 30 members, 26 elected, 4 nominated. Here in Bodoland, it is 46 members, 40 are elected and 6 are nominated. The nominated members belong to the unrepresented communities who are not adequately represented in the opinion of the government. So, who are these nominated members? How governor nominates them? So, the governor tries to find out persons with an identity which are unrepresented communities, which belong to unrepresented communities. For example, there are so many tribes. So a few tribes are very popular, very developed, whereas there are many tribal groups which are very secluded, which are very underdeveloped, and it is the duty of the governor to bring those unrepresented communities to come forward and take active participants in the councils and regional councils. So this is how the sixth schedule is being done, has been done. So many efforts, they put so many efforts where they can discuss that how to empower this area, how to empower this region, which requires special attention because of many issues which we have discussed. So which includes the area is covered by many countries and it shared international borders. Also, it is a very good source of natural resources. There are so many ethnicities living there. There are so many tribal groups which are so different from each other. Languages are different, cultures different, traditions are different. So, because of this diversity, the sixth schedule tried to put more attention towards this area because it has so many identities living together. Now, let's talk about the administrative structure of Autonomous District Council. The administrative structure of the Autonomous District Council consists of a council of secretariat and an executive wing. The council secretariat has a chairman of the council. It is appointed by the chairman. So the secretary is appointed by the chairman. So this is how the administrative structure of Autonomous District Council is being worked. So with this, I end my lecture here. Thank you.